And blessed to be a part of your day. Thank you very much for listening. Joining us now is Cassie Smedley, joining us from the RNC. Cassie, good to have you with us.
Hey, Kevin, good morning. How are you?
Not bad. So the president looks like it might be on with Kim Jong-un.
That's right. They certainly seem to be making every effort to keep it going. You saw in his letter, he said, our expected meeting. So I think that shows some real optimism on his part. And you saw today that North Korea sent, I think it's their head spy master, is in New York to try and keep those conversations going. They've had the meeting with South Korea over the weekend, so we're trying to keep this moving.
And yet everybody seems to look for something to cause problems and cause issues with the administration. You know, it's never good enough, it seems.
Right, but I think that's interesting because the poll, I think it's a week or so old now, but 77% of Americans like where the president is going with this North Korea summit. They like that we have a hard, strong line on North Korea, and we feel, I'm included in that the president is getting something done where his predecessors have failed to do so. So they should stop looking for trouble and start getting on board because it's where the American people want us to be on this issue.
Well, tell that to Chuck Schumer.
Well, I think he's made a profession out of obstructing the president, so I'm not surprised shocking that he woke up and found some issue with it.
When you think of the battle for Congress, how is that going?
Well, I would say that's what the Democrats should really be focusing their time on, because as I'm sure you've seen, the generic ballot poll, which just says any Republican versus any Democrat, the Democrats had over a 20-point swing in their favor at the start of the year, and it's completely wiped out. And if you look at some of the polls, there's a 6-point swing in Republicans' favor. And I think that's because, generally speaking, the American people like what they see, of course, with tax cuts and the way the economy is moving and momentum that they're feeling in their own communities. And the Democrats' resist and obstruct message is completely backfiring. So, as we've talked about here before, for our part, we're not taking any vote for granted at the Republican Party. And we're out in 26, about to be 27 states, hundreds of staff in these states, thousands more volunteers. And the Democrats have just been seemingly sitting on their hands. They've got some good momentum with a couple of candidates, but the party itself, I mean, did you see last week, Kevin, with the DNC chairman Tom Perez endorsed in the New York governor's race, despite that he said he wouldn't, and the vice chairman, Keith Ellison from Minnesota, went crazy about it. He put out a press release and he went on TV. I mean, they can't even get their ducks in a row at the highest levels. I can only imagine what it looks like at the grassroots.
Well, it seems like their big national candidate for 2020 is Bernie.
Well, they are a national candidate, quote unquote. I know. And then you have the Bernie supporters saying, we don't know that we want you to run as a Democrat. So they can't quite get that together. And that's really going to be a problem, because what you're seeing in these primaries is that the DNC and the DCCC, the House political arm, they keep getting involved in these primaries to try and get these more moderate mainstream folks over the finish line because they think they're more electable. And what do the Democrat primary voters do? They keep voting in the progressives, who have far more extreme viewpoints than can typically win a general election. So it'll be interesting. But for our part, it seems to be going the way that we hoped and planned, and we know it's an uphill battle, especially in a year, the first election after the party that controls the White House gets the White House. But we've prepared for that, and we are moving forth, barnstorming the country with our plan.
Indeed. When we take a look at the press, though, will they ever love the president?
Does he need him to love him? You know, I think that's the other thing, is that the press, and I have to say, we work every day with good people in press, but it seems those guys who go out there to make a show every day, you know, that's their call that they've made, and it has not derailed the president's efforts. It hasn't derailed the administration's efforts. That's, to me, what's so funny about these members of the media who make it their daily mission to derail the president. And here, the Trump train just keeps rolling through town.
Indeed. What else should we be looking out for?
Well, I think look for this fall. Actually, I was just reading about it before I hopped on with you. the president loves to be out on the campaign trail. We're going to see him out on the campaign trail, and I think he's going to rev up that schedule. And looks to be a little bit of an agreement with Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell that he's going to keep senators in town. He's not going to let those senators who are in competitive races, in particular the Democrats that are in states that Donald Trump won in 2016, he wants to keep them in Washington and hold their feet to the fire on getting a lot of these nominations passed, in particular these judge nominations, and not out there on the campaign trail. So I think that's going to be an interesting dynamic to have the Senate in doing the business of the Senate, as they should be, and the president out on the trail doing what he loves best and what we love seeing him do.
Boy, that is a culture change from what we've seen in Washington in the past.
Oh, that's right. You know, Barack Obama was kind of the third rail. People weren't sure if they could be seen with him, and they weren't interested in having him on the trail with them for fear that that would make them look too establishment. And here, the greatest gift you can get is the president coming out and holding a rally in your state with you. And I think that's a lot of fun that he enjoys doing it, and I think it's great that he's going to keep that pace, really rev it up, actually.
Well, Casey, we appreciate you. Thank you for joining us, and you have a great day. Thanks for pinch hitting off the bench on such short notice.
Absolutely. Turn on Fox. I think Kaylee's on in just a minute.
Okay, take care.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye. Kevin Miller in the morning here, KIDO Talk Radio. Phone number's 580-5436, 580-KIDO. So there's been a lot going on. I want to thank everybody who came out and donated at Miller's Mission. It was a wonderful time, and we so appreciate all your donations to the Boise Rescue Mission. And, you know, we take a look at some of the stories that we didn't have a chance to get to, and this issue out of Oklahoma that the national press continues to cover up. And this is the issue where you had armed bystanders gunning down a shooter. This happened Thursday at an Oklahoma City restaurant. And these hard-charging heroes decided that they were not going to be victims. They were going to arm themselves, they were going to walk around, and they took down a perp. And we don't hear this with school shootings. We don't hear this with anything else. You don't hear about the Indiana teacher who bravely confronted a student who had two weapons, took him down, right? Because we're all supposed to be conditioned as sheep. Well, that wasn't the case, right? Where you have someone who sat down and said to themselves, we are not going to be victims, we are not going to be killed, and they took legitimate action. And you have people, you know, trying to figure this out because it doesn't help the narrative. You know, when you have David Hogg and others, or David Hogg, going to supermarkets and lying down in supermarkets to protest, a supermarket chain by the name of Publix donating to the NRA. And everybody just kind of, you know, wallows away, walks down, gets beat up, and just does their own thing. Well, in Oklahoma, it was a little different. And the difference was you had people that just said, look, we're not going to take it. We're going to sit down, and we're going to make sure that these folks are good to go. Let's try it again.
When he came in, he shot people inside the restaurant.
Okay.
And he was shot.
Patio.
I don't know what exit or what door he came in. But,
Can you remind us who shot the suspect and anything about him?
no, we don't know anything other than it was a civilian that was outside, and he confronted the suspect, and he shot and killed him.
With a handgun?
With a handgun.
Did the suspect have any protection on? We may have heard of loose skin or some sort of ear protection or any kind of protection. Do you know anything about that?
He did have some ear protection on and some eyeglasses, but I don't know if that was prescription glasses or what, but yeah, he did.
And are you guys now looking at where he lives, stuff like that? I mean,
First of all, we're going to have to identify who he is. I don't know if he has a wallet, if we're going to have to fingerprint him first, but we'll have to find out who he is, and then that's part of a homicide investigation. You start working backwards from that point to find out, what his actions were, and see. We'll start looking at if he has any Facebook posts or anything like that, if he made any threats. So we'll check with his friends and relatives, and we'll go on from there.
Well, there you have it, though, and that's the police chief, Bo Matthews, in Oklahoma City. And gosh knows Oklahoma City has had a ton of issues, past, present, and future. So here you have a man walking in, threatening people, and you have an armed civilian saying, look, we're not going to take this. The gunman ran from the scene. Two bystanders got their own handguns from the trunks of their vehicles, then confronted and fatally shot the attacker outside the restaurant. Now, this is Louis Grill and Bar. When we're talking about this, the man started in, he opened fire with a handgun, 3 people inside the restaurant decided, hey, we're going to do something about it. They went after this guy. They were able to shoot the suspect and put an end to a very dangerous situation, according to Matthews, adding the men Carlos Nazaria and Brian Whittle did not know each other. It's not clear who fired the fatal shot. Police initially said that only one man fired on the attacker. Now, bystanders say they were well within their legal rights to protect themselves. And see, this is what we don't hear about from other places and other stories. At 580-5436, Kevin at KIDOAM.com, that this issue here involving when there is a threat. And that's why we should look at, the idea of making, as Sean Hannity has talked about, hard targets of schools and other places, right? Because if they're not hard targets, they're going to be soft targets. And putting a sign up saying a gun-free zone, unfortunately, doesn't work. We'll talk a little bit about that. Plus, your thoughts on sensitivity training at your favorite barista. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio.
The signs at Starbucks stores remind customers they're closing early today for 4-hour anti-bias training. They explain they're closing more than 8,000 stores nationwide for a few hours so their team can, quote, reconnect with our mission and share ideas about how to make Starbucks even more welcoming. More than 175,000 employees are expected to participate in the racial bias education program, which comes after the arrest of 2 black men at a Starbucks in Philadelphia, in which a manager called police because the men hadn't bought anything. Included in the training session will be information on the history of civil rights in America, as well as a short documentary film. In New York City, Tanya J. Powers, Fox News.
And there we have it. Kevin Miller in the morning here at KIDO Talk Radio. So maybe you go to Starbucks, maybe you have a good time. Maybe you like Starbucks because of its atmosphere. Now, all 8,000 stores closing because of sensitivity training. And if they did not get the sensitivity training in school through the civil rights training and everything else, you're going to get a dash of civil rights training. All because 2 guys came into a store that happened to be black, that happened to be African American, and decided that they were going to sit there and hang out. Now, whether you're white, black, whatever, if you're sitting in a place of business, and I believe there are signs there, no solicitation, is the business owner obligated for you to just sit there and hang out? There are a lot of people that do that. They'll get a cup of water, and they'll sit there, and they'll work on their laptops, or they'll play Dungeons and Dragons, not kidding, and have a good time. For me personally, I think that a business owner has the right to say to you that if you're not working, if you're not working there, or if you're not buying something, then you have to go. There was a place in Times Square many years ago. ESPN had their own restaurant, and it was kind of a neat thing. And basically, it's like a big giant sports bar, and you would go in there, and they'd have these leather comforters up front, and you would have to, you could sit there, but you had to purchase a meal. And there was a minimum that you had to purchase with this meal. And it was great because you were in front of all these big screens, and so unfortunately the restaurant didn't work. But you couldn't just go in there and hang out and not buy something. And now we have Starbucks, in my opinion, overreacting to this based on the situation in Philadelphia. And now we're hearing reports that people are going into Starbucks and having a good time and doing their own thing and, messing up the restrooms and gosh knows what else. To me, it seems a little extreme. But again, Starbucks is based in Seattle. And if anybody's ever been to Seattle, you know what they've done to that city. And you know what I'm talking about, the people that don't produce, the people that sit back and live on the streets and use the sidewalks for a urinal or, gosh forbid, something else like they do in the Bay Area. And now they've turned this brilliant restaurant chain that's so afraid to do anything, they're looking at their shadows, and you're going to have people outside the state of Idaho that live in the bubble of being politically correct saying, this is a good thing. We've showed these people. This is wonderful. This is the best ever because we are going to educate and indoctrinate the people of Starbucks and make sure that everybody knows. You know how blessed we are in America? Memorial Day was yesterday, and you take a look at the men and women who died for this country, particularly the men in World War II. And I'm watching this series every year. HBO reruns it. And for the first time, I'm watching it, The Band of Brothers, produced by Spielberg and Tom Hanks and others. Those were real problems. The Germans invaded our country. The Japanese attacked our country, not the Germans. Those were first world problems where people wondered and people volunteered, and you went into the airborne, jumping out of an airplane because they paid you $50 extra. And it was all about servicing country. There was nothing to be offended about. You went and did your job. How many of us can really say that's the same spirit today, where we're looking to be offended by everything? And this ridiculous thing at Starbucks where, again, you go back to that episode of Seinfeld where everybody's offended. That's a precursor to the world we live in today. 580-5436-580-KIDO. I go back to this. Starbucks is being silly, but again, they want to make sure that they don't get sued, that they don't have any more protests and everything else. So they're doing this. Coming up, back to arming civilians first, traffic and weather. And Kevin Miller in the morning here. So we were talking about taking matters into your own hands. And on Friday, a middle school student was arrested in connection with a school shooting at a middle school in Indiana. Now, instead of standing by and letting things happen, science teacher Jason Seaman, who interviewed and stopped the suspect, spoke out about the incident, asking the student victim, 13-year-old Ella Whistler, and everyone else remaining in everyone's thoughts as she continues to recover from the hospital. So here is the hero in Indiana, Jason Seaman.
I can't say enough how proud of Ella I am and how we all should be. Her courage and strength at such a young age is nothing short of remarkable, and we should all continue to keep her in our minds as she continues to recover.
There you have it. Now, you have two ways of looking at things. You can protest and be like the kids at Parkland, and they have every right to do that. Or you can start hardening up these schools, hardening up these targets. That's the issue on what type of an America you want to live in. Sad but true. And you take a look at law enforcement and what they recommend, and education folks, what they recommend. And as we get ready for the summer, congratulations to all the people graduating. Now is the time to start putting in preventative measures.
Community members have found numerous ways to support myself and my wife Colette throughout the process. They have done so while still allowing us to maintain our privacy as we continue to process what we're processing.
Now remember, Mr. Seaman confronted the gunman without any weapons and took him down. He's been receiving a lot of praise, but he said, look, it's a team effort.
My actions on that day, in my mind, were the only acceptable actions I could have done given the circumstances. I deeply care for my students and their well-being, so that is why I did what I did.
And there we have it, a true hero who made a difference. And again, it's very easy to sit back and Monday morning quarterback everything. Not so easy to make those decisions like those folks did in Oklahoma. I would hope, and considering it's Oklahoma, I don't think those people have to worry about being prosecuted. Now, if it were in California or Washington or Oregon or any of the other more liberal, progressive, gun-grabbing states, you'd probably have to worry. And that's why in Idaho we passed legislation to protect people that have to defend themselves using lethal or deadly force. And that's just at your home. But at your business, at your place of work, at the park, wherever else, it comes down to not only how safe do you feel, or how safe are you willing to go. In other words, are you looking for that additional training? Are you looking to make a difference? Are you looking to take the steps to protect yourself and your family? Most folks will make that. By the way, according to the Bleacher Report, we have this just in, and you could kind of see this when this young man decided to become a coach. But Shea McClellan ready to move on, according to the Bleacher Report and ESPN, via the New England Patriots. Linebacker Shea McClellan, a 2012 first-round draft pick of the Chicago Bears, who won a Super Bowl championship with New England Patriots in 2016, says he isn't officially retiring from the NFL, but is prepared to move on, having played his last game because of the cumulative impact of concussions. Quote, I'm still ready and still working out. I've learned to never say never. There's always a chance that I could still play again. But for now, my focus is on coaching high school football. And remember, last couple weeks ago, it was announced that he would be the linebackers coach at Mountain View High School in Meridian, Idaho. And there we have it, the former Boise State star saying never say never, but he is ready to move on. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie. And blessed to be a part of your day, Kevin Miller in the morning. So Starbucks and their sensitivity training, getting your thoughts at 580-5436. 580-KIDO.
529 is an opportunity to renew our commitment to the third place. Because we understand that racial and systemic bias have many causes, sources, and ways of showing up within each of us and in our communities. So to get things going, Kevin will welcome teams.
We are here to make Starbucks a place where everyone feels welcome.
And Common, one of our guides, will help folks start exploring their own identities.
Helping people see each other fully, completely, respectfully.
Once partners have gotten warmed up, they will start to explore the third.
If only our popular culture were the same way, right? You know, when you have the despicable rap music, when you have the despicable popular music, when you have popular culture vilifying people calling, saying it's white privilege and everything else. Look, I understand. I wish we could go back to what Dr. King talked about. But the idea that we're going to, everybody's welcome. And remember, these were based on two people that were there that were loitering. Are we not going to enforce loitering laws anymore?
Place and its relation to our mission. Howard will join the conversation and explain why the third place even matters, its origin story. And he'll also share his hopes and dreams for this next era.
And so on a personal level, I want to ask you that together, we do everything we can to build that third place in your store.
And it's from this anchoring point that partners move into a real and honest exploration of bias.
And there we have it. Of course, bias usually only goes one way. Unfortunately, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. So what are we going to do without a Starbucks? A day without a Starbucks. Perhaps this is a good thing. By the way, one reason why we should keep an eye on Congress is our great friend Rudy Giuliani. He was on Fox News Sunday, which you can hear on 580 AM and 107.5 FM, KIDO Talk Radio. He was on. Bill Hemmer was in for Chris Wallace, and the talk of impeachment came up.
The reality is the American people have come to the conclusion everybody else has. This investigation is rigged. It's unfair. And if they have to choose on impeachment or not, with a president who's going to be making peace with North Korea, God willing, and we should all be rooting for that. They're not probably, but we are. I don't see, this could really turn on them, and they're not going to have their impeachment Congress that they want.
One can only hope that they don't have their impeachment Congress. Remember our old friend Bernie Sanders, he's back. This is what he said last week on Meet the Depressed.
I think you allow the investigation to go where it goes. I'm a member of the United States Senate. And if Trump is impeached, I will have to be making a decision.
Now, what about Bernie and his wife and all those shenanigans going on? Where's the FBI investigating those folks, right?
Voting on that. You can't jump the gun and determine that somebody should be impeached when you're going to be voting on the impeachment issue. So I think you allow the Mueller investigation to do its course. You fight against anybody who wants to impede that investigation, but I think it is too early to talk about impeachment.
Okay, Bernie. From Bernie to Cindy, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio.
Oh, great, Kevin. Now you slipped Bernie in there. Well, I guess he and Mr. Simpson will have something to talk about today since they seem to have the same agenda or plan. But seriously, Kevin, on Starbucks, I lived in Washington. I gave up a long time ago ever walking back into a Starbucks with their social engineering. And as you know, I live in Caldwell, so right up the street I have a Starbucks. I have never, ever, ever, ever been in it, and I won't give them a penny to begin with. But across the street, and I'm just going to say this real quick, great coffee at McDonald's for seniors, 79 cents. And there's where you see the guys that you were talking about, I see World War II vets, I see Vietnam vets sitting there with their cups on, lots of seniors, or I go over and see my Lean Mean Fight machine over at Burger King, and you get 49-cent coffee. Encourage these kids, come on now, I'm thinking about it. Come on, you could join the Air Force. So
wait a minute, you don't see the people that made America at Foo Starbucks?
I will not go into their social engineering a long time ago. I don't go in there. I've never been in there. My friends have asked me to go in there, and I said the pennies that I have. I was thrilled last week to be able to be part of your outreach. That's the American spirit over there with your people at Boise Rescue Mission. If I have extra money, that's where it will go to.
What do you make, though, of the whole we need to re-engineer and, is Starbucks right? Are we all insensitive? Maybe we should have Starbucks training for everybody, and you can learn how to make a latte and a flatte, and then you can learn to be sensitive.
No, I think, the engineering that people do, Lars Larson had a great program on yesterday about Jamestown. I think you can try to social engineer people and into whatever type of America you want, but you better watch out that you don't start drinking the Kool-Aid with this social engineering, and that is true. And that man was as dangerous as the ideas that are coming in. No, yesterday I was blessed to be down the Veterans Garden meeting someone, and I'm so done with the caller, but this man served, and we were chit-chatting about his dog, then over to Canyon Hill, the cemetery, down to put flowers. That Caldwell has a great memorial for those that all served. So I know what those men are in their hearts. The people, like the teacher, the people that run towards the problem. The people that were on, I told you that he was an Air Force guy and that trained to Paris, who ran towards the problem unarmed. I'm not even thinking of going anywhere near Starbucks. I got more of a chance to survive going to McDonald's or Burger King with somebody who might be sitting there with concealed carry. I just am done with that whole mentality. I listened to great shows yesterday. Look at this, 19 kids, 19-year-old over in, World War II, writing home. They're not worried about bathroom sensitivity. No, they're digging their own latrines and foxholes to stay alive. They're walking around with 50-pound packs on their back. They're not worrying about showers because they haven't had a shower for 3 weeks. So those are the men, that fighting, brave spirit that I see men like that all around, over here in Idaho.
Well, no, they've been replaced by the guys with the man buns now. You wouldn't see any World War II veteran or a Vietnam veteran or Korean War veteran with a man bun.
Well, that generation, I believe when I see and try to encourage the young people out there that instead of the opposite of seeing joining our armed forces and being part of something greater than yourself, I think, that's what those people were out there, the heroes that weren't defined sometimes by even, just even a grunt what they were doing, but exactly how they died. And, that said, we all are going to, I was a hospice nurse. I'm at the end of the trail here. I know exactly where I'm going, but isn't it wonderful that something is worth dying for, like this military was, beyond yourself and selfishness. So great day yesterday and great mission, Kevin.
All right, Cindy, thank you. God bless. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. It is troubling when you see the world we live in today and how beneficial and how gracious we are that you have a major corporation shutting everything down for sensitivity training. And, of course, that wasn't the case in World War II or in Korea or in Vietnam. There were no sensitivity trainings. You had a job to do. We'll talk about it next. 5:08 a.m., 107.5 FM. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. And that is a good point. Still time to donate. BoiseRM.org for more details. Liberal Steve joins us now on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Liberal Steve.
Mr. Miller, can you hear me okay? I got you on speaker because I'm driving at 700 miles an hour in a 60-mile-an-hour zone.
Well, that's reassuring. What can we do for you?
I think it's a great thing that Starbucks is what they're doing. I mean, I think we could all use sensitivity training on and off. We get a little tough around the edge. We see things and hear things. I think that's the way it is everywhere. So, yeah, I think it's okay.
So do you believe that the folks at Starbucks were wrong when they had two people loitering and they said, look, you're either going to have to buy something or you get the boot?
It wasn't the people. I think it was just one person, wasn't it?
There were two people there.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, I think they were wrong. I mean, if I would have been in charge, when this would have gave them the key, I would have gave the key to anybody. You got to go, or whether you're buying or not buying.
I see. So you agree that it was worth all this whole day of pain and suffering and everything else?
Well, where was the pain and suffering?
Well, you're shutting this down. You're shutting down the Starbucks. We've got to have sensitivity training. We've got to go through everything. And really, for what? Tell me what? What did they do wrong?
What I don't understand is, why do we even have coffee shops on the corners?
What does that mean?
I mean, you make your own coffee at home, you put it in a thermos, and you take it with you. How do people, people are constantly talking about being broke and the cost of gas. I mean, they complain about the cost of gas, and they go into a Starbucks and pay money for black, what I call black gold. No pun intended.
I see.
So, I'm just saying, it's a good thing. Any sensitivity. And you, Miller, I don't know what happened to you. You're got dropped on your head more than once. But, I mean, you ran down men that wear a bun for no reason at all. You just started making fun of men. Is your name Alex? Is your name Cameron or because you wear a bun?
A lot of people say that a lot of people would say that you would need sensitivity training. For the people that listen to this program, the people that have values that are different from your own.
My values are values that are correct, though, Kevin. You know that.
Well, maybe you should be sensitive to people that have other values besides your own.
Well, can I just remind Idaho of one thing?
Oh, you've reminded us of a lot.
Thing. I want to get back on track, vote for Paulette in November.
Paulette's going nowhere. You know that, and I know that. You know that, and I know that. Paulette's done.
There's rumors out, though, that Starbucks, the symbol and everything, is a satanic cult-type thing. So,
well, there's rumors about a lot of things. Thank you very much for driving hands-free. Phone number is 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Kevin Miller in the morning on KIDO Talk Radio. Let's get you to work safely. All right, Larry Gebert, thank you very much. Phone number is 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Kevin Miller in the morning on KIDO Talk Radio. I'm getting back to this whole issue involving Starbucks, as you heard from Liberal Steve, you heard from Cindy and Caldwell. Just this, this national day that we have to go over everything and become more sensitive. Is that really necessary? And when you have the folks at Starbucks, again, we're supposed to be looking at people, regardless of skin color. If you're in a business, now, again, if this was your business, if you had a business and someone comes in and just hangs out, they don't buy anything, they sit there and take advantage of your luxurious facilities, shouldn't you have the right to say, you gotta go? You gotta go, Joe! I don't see what the big deal is, but Starbucks has overreacted. They've got a national day of sensitivity training, and really my concern is sensitivity training doesn't go both ways. When you look at the popular lyrics, you look at shows, most notably there's a new show on Turner called The Last OG, where Stacey Lawrence makes fun of a white guy that's dating or that's married his ex-wife and everything else, and that's to be acceptable. Then you have people saying, well, there's white privilege, and white people shouldn't talk, and everything else. Tell me how Starbucks is going to address that. How is Starbucks going to address that? Shouldn't we just say, give me a cup of coffee and let it go at that, as opposed to mocha loca boca? And by the way, I don't know, I just kind of, the barista language just kind of unnerves me.
This is a direct response to that incident in Philadelphia last month. 2 black men arrested inside a Starbucks while waiting to meet a friend. The The two were arrested for trespassing, though charges were later dropped before reaching a settlement with the coffee giant. Starbucks announced shortly after that it would conduct racial bias training, which we're told will include about 175,000 of its employees this afternoon. As a result, roughly 8,000 corporate-owned locations will be closed. The company released a preview of the training.
And there we have it. This is the world we live in today. From liberating the world to sensitivity training. From the greatest generation to the most sensitive, and I say this with due respect, pampered generation. That if our Wi-Fi doesn't work, that if our electricity goes out, that if we don't have access to our phones that really control us, we don't control them, we start to lose it. Very different from the beaches of Iwo Jima, from storming Saigon, or liberating the world. But that's our challenge, and we're with you every step of the way, waking up on the right side. Kevin Miller on 580 AM, 107.5 FM, KIDO Talk Radio, Fox News next. Good morning.